Greetings. Just going to have a little talk it out with you about the 2017 murders of Abby and Libby, known as the Delphi murders, because there's such an explosion of information right now. Some information might be fact pertaining to a case. Some information could turn out just to be speculative or nothing to do with the case. Fact isn't evidence, even if it seems to be intrinsically linked to the actual events of the murders. But there's so much happening. It's so hard to assimilate, for me anyway, into what I already think I know about the events leading up to and after, and which isn't really a lot. In the past I've discussed various ideas about the case, Freemasonry, ritual, etc. But there's always been people talking about, well, they were known as the Snapchat murders initially, wasn't it? Because the girls were using their cameras. Libby was definitely using her phone, uploading photos of Abby to Snapchat. From the little I know about Snapchat, when a photo is taken and uploaded, that is the date and time that photo was taken. Okay, it's this very immediate thing, right? So, known as the Snapchat murders initially, now of course with all of this information about Kegan, Anthony Kline, and the catfishing account that he's linked to, Anthony_shots, of course everybody is talking about, were the girls catfished? And some people have been convinced of this all along and can't see how this could possibly be random. What is my personal feeling about the catfishing? Even if somehow someone knew that Abby and Libby were going to the bridge that day, whether they learned somehow in just those couple of hours before they left, through information leaking out of the German household in any way, I don't think that they were there that day to meet someone. I don't think it was a catfishing event per se, even though Greeno, through his contact, because relationships with the German family, has shown that Anthony Shot's account liked a photo Libby uploaded 50 days before her and Abby were murdered. I don't feel like that's what they were doing there that day. I really don't. They just didn't dress for it. There wasn't, I don't know. They didn't seem to just make any extra fuss about themselves over it. It just seemed like a very casual, just an innocent teenage girls wanting to go to a bridge, hang out, be on their own, explore, maybe get a thrill from crossing the bridge, doing something, illicit like that, and getting the adrenaline pumping, and just to have some time out, time to themselves. They'd been at home, I'd say, most of that long weekend perhaps, and been helping Becky Patty with some of her work, helping with administrative tasks, I believe, a bit of fresh air on a mild day, and would have been very appealing, and exploring around like that at that age is super appealing. At least it was for me at that age. And I just don't feel like they did anything special to their parents that announces to me they were there to meet someone that made one of their hearts race. I just don't believe it. Always there's talk of the car that apparently was seen on CCTV from Anderson's building, which is opposite the CPS building, and the car supposedly at the CPS building from sort of 12 to 5. And, you know, lots of talk about, is this the getaway car? My feeling on that again is, I mean, it's just so vague. It's just so vague. Why is there not a description then? But I'm wondering, you know, did that person, are they possibly someone that could have seen someone entering in to the trail system after the girls were dropped off? Could they have seen when and who turned up to collect them at the time? Just today there's been gossip about DG not having had a license since 2014, not being able to legally run these errands. So it's a bit brutal on Ron Logan, isn't it? Ron Logan being put away for a similar licensing issue, and someone else getting away scot-free, having been known to be driving that day. So it does make me wonder, well, does he get chauffeured around? Was someone driving DG around? Is this just not spoken of or known? I don't know. This is where you can correct me. I know I can go back and find out what's been said. I'm just musing on things here. But that does make me wonder, you know, who drove him to the nearby town on the errand for Becky and her business and all other times. And was he illegally driving his child around, I mean? That's not good. And he would have been known to have been doing that for years. So I don't know what the story is there. It's just something that I saw in True Crime Investigates chat today, and it does give you pause, especially when people have suffered in prison for breaking similar laws. You know, Ron Logan spent a long time in prison at a late stage of his life, and he's been really devastated through the whole affair. Not only persecuted online. I mean, look, you know, of course, when I was new to the case, I've done everything that everybody else, many others have done, you know. Whoa, what about this person? What about that person? And you question, but, you know, the more knowledge you gain, the more you can see how silly some things are and how unfair some things are. Of course, Abby and Libby were found on Ron Logan's land. This is private property, so, you know, sure, people might have been looking for the girls and not even going anywhere near them. And also, in those type of landscapes, even in winter, even with the bareness, it's very easy to walk past people. And in the searchers' minds, they are calling out and listening for girls who are playing truant. They are looking for people who are alive and maybe just hiding, playing hooky, mucking around, even if they didn't know the girls and are making assumptions that that is their character. To do so, you know, they weren't, you know, everyone's like, why weren't the bloodhounds sent out on the 13th? Well, number one, not every county and every town is going to have a bloodhound just sitting in his kennel, highly trained and ready to go. And also, if you can't even say someone is missing until 24 hours later. There's a lot of reasons why you can't just go out sending up helicopters and that sort of thing, and dogs, and activating search teams for teenagers who could be over at a friend's house. You know, it's just sad how everything's turned out all around. You know, so of course with the drone flying over, the heat-seeking drone, seeing deer and seeing people moving around, I'm not going to question that. You can think you're an expert enough to make pronouncements that if the girls were there, they would have been found by that drone. Again, I don't believe that's necessarily so, but that's just my layperson's opinion. Because to think of the logistics of the girls being away from the scene and brought back, I'm not so sure how that would work. And that would show a lot of evidence as well. And it's just super risky, even more risky than this broad daylight murder as it is, right? And the conspiracy just starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But I personally am not sure that this person, the perpetrator or perpetrators, was ever on the actual trails, the 505 or 501. I'm just not certain of that at all. I think the cemetery is an entry point. You can walk to the start of the bridge, you know, at the 505, I think it is, trail, or 501 trail, at the beginning of the walk that Abby and Libby would have taken. You can walk there from the cemetery, no problem. If you are aware of the landscape, sure. For example, if you're Julian Powell and you've put a drone up on the 12th specifically to stake out the area and to learn the topography, or if you're local, or if you've been there before in the past, you would know you could walk from the cemetery. Again, it's risky. People's properties are there, but what if you knew some family home is sitting there empty because people are away? And if you know the lay of the land and enough about the community, and you just wanted to see what might happen that day, or if you did see the girls be dropped off, you could assume you could walk that way to meet them, and then you're not seen on the trails, and you could leave the same way. So yes, was this someone that parked at the CPS building? Was it someone that parked at the cemetery? Pat Brown profiler thinks that's probably the case. It's just so convoluted now, you know. Do I believe that the perpetrator might be someone connected somehow via Anthony_shots? Yeah, because scumbuckets tend to know scumbuckets, right? And there could be just some sort of connection, even an in real life connection, that the catfishes and the people using that account, I believe there's probably more than one that all know they're doing it. They share their hobby, let's say, with each other. Even if it's someone they're connecting to somehow that isn't involved in the actual catfishing, I think yeah, there might be a connection. I just can't see all the way that law enforcement have handled it. I can understand how people think they must know who it is, right? But I really think, no, they have to have no clue. They have to have had no clue. But I can see how confusing it is. This is terrible. I just think they don't know. They didn't, which is more reason to think that the person is a complete random, you know, but maybe connected so tenuously to the Anthony Shots case, and perhaps finally they're realizing that this is the way we can catch him. I don't know. It is so sickening that Kegan Anthony Kline was out of custody for 3 whole years, able to harm others, even if they think, well, he won't do anything because he's going to be aware he's watched and monitored. Who knows what his psychology was? He could have taken things offline into the real world and committed heinous crimes, and, you know, beyond what he's already charged with, which are just repulsive things. Yeah, I think these crimes are so difficult to solve because they are random, and it just seems like such a mistake that information has been trickled out and all the, you know, could be in this room. Well, maybe that was just an assumption, right? Because that is the sort of thing, that's the bluff that FBI pulled to get people to make mistakes, to take a misstep, you know. They do it when they have no clue. Accuse someone or make these type of pronouncements. It's a common MO. Anyway, this is just so rambly and messy. I'm clearly tired and not feeling my best. But yeah, I just wanted to see what you guys think about Kegan Anthony Kline and, you know, and Julian Powell. So bizarre. Is this person someone that, you know, Julian, are you unwell and paranoid that because you were there on the 12th, in your mind now everyone is judging you as guilty, and so you're acting out based on psychosis or paranoia and having to act as if, well, you know who it is. Do you know who it is? Because someone wanted you to use your drone and give them information about the area. You weren't needed for that because we've got Google Earth. I mean, if I'm going to areas of natural beauty, let's say, and I can simply study the maps, study the information, see photographs from the area, Google Earth, whatever, and when I go there, I've got a map in my mind. You don't need a drone. So I don't know what Julian Powell's deal is. I have a feeling it might be, it's sad and needs help, and it could be attention seeking, mental illness, it could be many things. I'm not sure. Who do I think the person on the bridge might actually be because of this new information? Well, I feel like not Kegan Anthony Kline himself. If it's anyone related to him, it's possibly just an opinion, Tony, possibly his father, Tony Kline. Yeah, I don't think it's catfishing. I'm not convinced, even though I know there's been lots of work of people, plotting out how this person arrived and where they waited and looked. I respect that. It's just my opinion. I don't think they went on the trails. When you're going to commit such a heinous crime, and if you're going to be aware that you're looking for that opportunity in advance, you are going to do things like not even go on the trail if there's a way in, avoiding the trails. And there 100% is, because indeed this is how a lot of people think this person left, and then walked away along waterways and through forest and things like that. And that's certainly very possible. But if they left that way, they could have gone in that way as well. Because the way the bridge goes over the creek, it's a loop of creek that the bridge crosses, right? So creek, bridge. So you're coming onto the bridge here to cross, or you walk around, and there's like the mayor's property, I think, or whatever, cemetery, Ron Logan. And you don't go across the bridge, you just walk around, and you can walk in that way as well, over the bridge, wait for the girls, pass them, and do the turnaround, as is speculated by Kat and Greeno. And at least if I were a cold-blooded serial killer or first-time thrill killer, I certainly wouldn't be going on the trails. I can see how, that just lends even more to the randomness, complete randomness, if he was on the trails, that makes it just so truly opportunistic, walking along and just suddenly realised that he had two teenage girls isolated at the far end of a bridge. Did he already know the topography below? Did he just get lucky and escape? I don't know. I tend to think he did know the area. He knew the lay of the land. He didn't necessarily know what was going to happen, but he was prepared for something if he had the opportunity. It's a smaller possibility, that it was still opportunistic, but he knew that Libby and Abby were going there. That means he was prepared well in advance and then just could act fast and was ready and able to do so. Yeah, so that is curious about Derek, Abby's dad. It's true. He's got, this jaded history with the law, and I don't know how the law works with regard to, if you don't have custody, how you can share a dwelling with the daughter you don't have custody of. I guess because Becky Patty has taken that role. She's guardian. But I don't 100% know, shit, man. You're not even allowed to say this stuff, right? without it being shade on the patties, was this a safe environment for teenage girls? I mean, no environment where, you know, no one can control, I guess, who's in your home, who they really are, what they really think, what they're capable of doing. These girls are vulnerable. We learn this time and time again. You want to feel like everything's happy families and you can trust everybody in your life. But, there's sort of step family and their friends, their friends. You can't vouch for those people, those other people. You can want to wholeheartedly vouch for your own whānau, your family. Of course you want to. You want to protect them and their reputation and their integrity at all costs. It's only natural. But nobody can 100% say that Abby and Libby were safe from everybody who was ever around the Patty's home. They were at a ripe age to be coveted or exploited, and at a naturally, difficult time in life where lots is happening in women's bodies and minds as far as development, hormones, curiosity, a little bit of rebellion, all sorts of things, secrecy growing. I mean, Kelsey lost the secret keeper, didn't she? Well, what secrets were going back and forth between Kelsey and Libby? Is there some guilt somehow, a feeling of guilt? This is the shack thing. This is what always comes to mind for me with regards to Kelsey mentioning the shack, is the sister's guilt in the shack, because she was drowning in the lake. Father left the little girl alone, and that's when she was snatched. And the father only finds out years later the hell of grief that the sister suffered, because she felt like she left that child alone. She left her, she abandoned her because she, diverted the father's attention away. And what the frick was I saying? What was I saying before that? Why did I... You can't vouch for everybody, and it's a simple fact, even though it's natural to want to. On one hand, I can just see that if Derek spoke out, every little nuance would be slaughtered. Even if he made a written statement, it would be overanalyzed to the nth, right? But I feel personally, I wish that he had been speaking up for his daughter. That does drive me crazy as much as it drives other people. I want to be understanding about it. I don't personally understand it, but I'm not in his position. So I don't know how I would feel and what I would do. It's all hypothetical. We all think we would act in a specific way. We all make all these judgments, but until it's you, it's not set in stone, it's not it doesn't make it fact, and it doesn't make any sort of evidence. Could Derek know the perpetrator? Yeah, possibly. Possibly. Anyone in Delphi might know the perpetrator. I think possibly they're from another town or they've moved away. Could it... I don't want to go down other people's theories and things that have been widely spouted online, and particularly because there's other people, YouTubers, who support the person and say there's no way, etc. But I can understand some of the concerns people have about a certain person. You know, if I were to think of them as a perpetrator, would it be because there was some really weird sick fantasy about a daughter and lesbian lover and that sort of thing? Yes, but that is so disparaging on a character of a person that I don't know. So it's, you know, you've got to be very careful saying things like that. But yeah, again, would know the lay of land, was part at the cemetery, was involved in things, so sure. But one would hope that, you know, Keystone Cops could stitch that one up, right? And then, of course, reason being, only reason why is because maybe alibi, and it needs to be broken. And it's crazy. I think that's what police maybe have been waiting for all along, was this broken alibi. But isn't it just crazy, because everything that's happening now just, it's static, isn't it? It's just, is it just white noise? Number one, just on its own, it's absolutely infuriating that it does turn out that the raid in the Peru home, I think the county is Miami County, that the raid in the Peru home of the Klines was so close after, and there is a connection to the crime, and yet there were no charges and nothing happened until 2020. Also, I mean, the allegations against the FBI